I think that would be a good place for that too, because it's got a nice like open grass and there's a bench there you can sit on. That's on.
Give them an idea of what you think.
Really boring.
He's at an opponent that's running the race pretty hard.
I noticed that the flyers in the mail, and I was like, so.
He went to the parade yesterday, and I noticed a video on Feel the Sweat. I'm at the parade going, talking to people, and my opponent is only needing his sweat. Doing stuff. It's pretty interesting.
He doesn't normally have an environment like this intensely.
Yeah. He's doing a lot of native campaigns. It's gonna be the same way.
I'm done sleeping.
Well, we need another chair for Cheryl.
I'm gonna sit back here. It's gonna be my couch.
No, you're not. No, I that one's. You have the rest of my files. Of course. He's up in here.
I know it definitely doesn't fall under water or sewer.
Come on.
Try.
I know.
Oh, I don't know. Yours are, yeah. Mine are usually a little thicker.
It's 5 o'clock. It's not like so you're saving.
There you go.
And she has a certificate in case.
Oh, okay. Is that from work?
It's from
Purdue?
We'll call this meeting to order. Item 3.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, for coming. As you can see, I am not Ben Smaltz, but he will be here shortly. I did want to prep a little bit because I know council was kind of involved in getting some questions around that we had for them. And so I'm going to put down a little bit of kind of our talking points for that way you guys are familiar with what's going to happen and kind of what we're going to discuss with them. And I'm just going to read through the text that I sent them. So we'll be talking about possibly transitioning from peer town manager to economic development director. With that, ways the state can help us grow and improve our town, or suggestions on how to better set up our local government for maximum efficiency. Number 2 is going to be SB1, the bill that we talked about at the last meeting. And then we'd also be interested in hearing what you have observed in other communities and doing that you've been successful for, or that they've been successful for them. And then considering you travel so often and talk to other municipalities, maybe you might have seen other things that might help or benefit the town of Waterloo. Also interested in learning resources available to help finance planning and completion of Pokebach Trail through Waterloo. And then also other sources of funding for building redevelopment projects that we might not know about. So those are a little bit of what we put down for that. So when he gets here, if you have any other things that's kind of outside of that, that's what he's prepped for right now. But he said he's more than willing to take questions, and if he doesn't have a direct answer, then he will get back to us. Okay. That's all I got. I hate awkward silences.
Are they planning to use the Auburn Waterloo portion of the trail as the Pokebach
Yeah.
coming into Waterloo?
Yeah.
Is that already kind of existing and been upgraded?
Yeah. In the third one, and then we figured out how to get it through town to the northern part of the town. Locally, bypass the town and try to figure some way to get through.
Okay. Like bypass around behind certain things. Is there another, you have to bridge the railroad at some point. So I think I remember hearing this.
So I worked in British Startup office, grading them out.
But that was But what do you do?
That's my kind of fun.
Were you able to dig into it and figure out
I
what?
found out it's some sort of sculptural
You didn't have to do that. Well, it's nice. When I was there, I got a major from both universities, so I got a degree from both. I was doing really great. I didn't realize I was getting the producer degree from that's the best career in my year. So I just got a degree for free. I paid for my own doing Yeah, it was pretty disappointing.
They were normally that.
Pretty extreme.
Daylight. We're not on scene. Daylight. You know, I see it the other day.
They shut about 10 minutes. It's just like you think you're like.
Tuesday,
So we have about 10 minutes out, so once we get to what it's started.
Turn it on to me every way.
Yes.
That program is very cool because you can buy your kids. You're traded in and you spend $100. So then you're not, or what if some money at the end you're traded in $100. She's got a lot more than $100 crap up in that. Her bag was probably close to
He's living up.
That's weird.
What year is this?
My a lot there.
Does it really make you better player?
Absolutely. I got a shaft.
I hope you're getting compensated for workman's comp stuff you're taking. Must be you.
Because you're doing business.
Work commissioner council.
Oh. So are you at
Every day of the week. If it's not there,
But you can play it.
she's gonna come on next week.
17 at the wall. It costs me a lot more money than what I got from them. I want 140 in sand when you get like that entire years.
Oh,
So I spent a lot of money on 140. Yeah. I've definitely seen workers that I've been with and I've done. I had focus on I had to let them know that part of the pen. Put my marker down very next year, the next year he gave them.
no.
Very next year. I think we'll focus on the pen for very well.
Set it in stone, gotta figure that out. because I wanted to do the Star Wars tour, because most of the Star Wars was shot in that valley.
So we're typically out there the first week of October, and normally it's about 100.
Vegas itself.
It's hot enough where like when we walk outside, you feel it more from the cement than you do from here. Like it gets nuts. We have to put a polish on it, don't see the light will burn our skin.
I went in September one year, and it was.
She regulated.
Wasn't too bad in Vegas when we were done back though, it was one. It was probably in the we had like, you were prepared for 7 days. Yeah, we had to go by 12.
There's a house on the street, on the strip. I, like last year, I had another one there, and I saw $7. It's down on where we burger. But it's like $30 for a cheeseburger. And then you have like a rice center as well. I think that was over $60. They're rigging it all. When we went, I took her free lunch. 2 years ago. So we got a free lunch. There's a couple of years. Like $3 a person. Yeah. It's not. The buffet over $100 a person.
I thought they had their food in Las Vegas.
No, if you're gambling, bring something. But that's almost free. And we found out last year it was a little harder than backside of the coach team. Yeah. That's crazy.
Hey, Josh, you can sing if you want to.
You don't want that.
It ain't gonna happen?
No.
Well, I'll say one thing if you want to sing.
You're right.
I'll get you going. Yeah, get too quiet. Then we're gonna find a radio.
You don't want that either.
No. Ken? Ken? I think he sang a solo. Solo, you
I'm so sorry. I honestly lost track of time at work and it's got away from me, so thanks for being patient. Hopefully I can have some great stuff.
Just kidding.
Normally you get me in a better uniform, but I really get it straight from that. Is you okay? So how can I help you?
Well, welcome. Appreciate you being here. You want to take it?
Sure. So tonight then, we're just looking to hear from you from the state level. What can we do differently? What grants or funding is available at the state level to kind of help us with the economic growth initiatives?
What sort of initiatives are you talking about? What do you?
We've got issues with the train that stops all the time, blocks your tracks. So I've got first responders that can't get across. I'm looking towards what can we do differently with downtown? What can we do with the interstate? You know, there's been some talk of coming in and pulling into right of ways. That's kind of detracted from some of the investors that we've heard from.
So just
Just a wide range, whatever, anything you've got that you can share with us.
the first thing we did recently, in was we were trying to get help develop a corner in the south, east corner of the I-69 US 6 exchange. And we just couldn't get far enough away for that entrance. So we struggled with how that was gonna work. Even though Casey's in Michigan is much closer to the interstate, we weren't able to replicate. So if you want to do something there, we were able to resolve some of the road issues on the northwest quadrant for maybe Gallops who's coming in. So we put in there, does anybody know where Gallops is as of right now? Are they making any progress? Are they coming?
They are currently, I know they've been working heavily with their engineers. I believe at this time they are just waiting until they sell, I believe they're selling their Kendall location. And then once they sell that, then they are going to move forward on the Waterview location. But that, the entrance was a big barrier for a long time. And I know that's something that, like you said, we'll have to work with on the east side as well,
No sort of timeline from that at all.
not as of now.
So there's nothing that you're not related that needs to happen.
No, they're just waiting on financing, and part of that is selling their Kendall location.
Going to the trains blocking your roads, I met with Brandy and Norfolk and Southern maybe 8 months ago, 6 or 8 months ago, and they were very interested in helping. They really are fond of Waterloo, it's a major part of their corridor. We talked about doing an overpass over. Railroads are interested in helping that sort of thing. The state can help with that. You can
federal funds for that. But the trade-off is they want to close at-grade crossings. So if you were to go down the road with Norfolk Southern about getting an overpass, you'd have to think about what at-grades you would want to close. So that because they don't want to maintain it. They're more than happy to invest in overpass. Then you've got to decide if you want an overpass that ends up doing something like Corona has, where if you remember the little Corona liquor store, she's had a little business, it doesn't work there anymore. So if you have it down, is that will take away from the businesses that you have downtown. We talked about putting it here, right by the depot, but if that's a road you want to go down, then that's something you can do.
If you do this one over here, will they require them to close the main street down there?
I don't think they would do that. I think they would ask for about everything else closed.
I know they were pushing hard to close Pennington. I haven't heard that one, but I know there's been several times they've asked us to close that one. And one of the big things from stopping the town from ever wanting to close it is if there's a train stop, if there's something, that is one of the ways around, especially for our first responders. But if there was an overpass, would the town be willing to give it up then? Or, but they did come a few years ago and just offer money to close it, and the town did say no.
You know, it's what it boils down to is their problem. They're long for the rest of us. They hear that a lot. But they've been pretty good across the state keeping at-grades open. But they really want to close. So if there's any place that you can see the trade-off, you can replicate the model that Auburn is using for their Main Street overpass. And that probably was a 2930 project, but they've leveraged state monies, I think got some money from the railroads, but they didn't have to close any at-grades because they're paying for most of it. If the railroads lean in, they want something like that. So think about that. That would take care of what you're doing. Every place in my entire district, we've got railroads all over the place. We all deal with trains blocking. You can get, I was able to get in Garrett, there was at County Road 19 and the Auburn Garrett Road. There were trains that would block. And part of that problem was they couldn't brake the train. So they would break the train apart. The brakes work on air. So they had to put in air compressors at 19. So if you go by County Road 19, you look off to the east, you'll see some square buildings, and that is, those are air compressors. So they can brake a train. So if you want to talk to them about an extended period of time, a crew change, and it's kind of quick, that's one thing. But they're blocking County Road 19 for hours at a time, and you're able to get that. So that's another option. So you can talk to Norfolk. The third thing that, and his name is Garrett Sutherland, like your subletting department. There's funds available just for railroad communities. So they can do matching grants for community projects. And we had started that, and he had pitched that to me and Brandon and met. That they've got funds for railroad communities like Waterloo. And so that's something you can go down. If you want to meet with Norfolk Southern, I can, this is their corridor, and I can put that together in a small group and see if there's something on you. You want me to try and put something together, Tim?
Yeah. That'd be great.
So talk about economic development. Start with utilities. You're dealing with NIPSCO here. And I understand that you guys had problems with NIPSCO and getting permits done and then doing the work. I was just on the phone with them yesterday, similar kind of situation north. So in Hamilton, I had a constituent that they were going to, he wanted them to extend his line 600 feet. They wanted to extend it 825 feet, go from wetland, $150,000 later. He's not going to pay that. But talking to them at an engineering level, you might be able to get a meter base put right on his property, and then he can go from there for no cost. So it just depends on what the specific problem is with NIPSCO that I can address with them very specifically, because they don't, they're hard to work with, Rob. It's not just you guys, it's everywhere that they are. They've got a formula that they go by on what they can extend and how much they're gonna charge. I'm an equipment rental business, so when I was looking at their charges, I saw $38,000 for a truck charge. And it's tell me more about how do I get $38,000 for the truck? Because they didn't need it for a back truck. It was going across an ag field. And you only use back trucks when you're in and around underground utilities, so you have to vacuum excavate to move the work. They didn't do that. So we were able to get it down. We'll see. We're still talking about it. But their rates are expensive. They're confusing. Your constituents and my constituents all want to talk about what the delivery charges are. I understand them. They're in your power bill too. You just don't see them as openly as you do on the gas bill. The power generating companies own largely the power generating facility, but not the lines that bring it. Those are my regional transmission operators, RTOs. So it's similar. They just charge a toll to use their line. It's similar in gas, and that's what they're doing. I see it too. When I have NIPSCO, everywhere I have gas, I have NIPSCO, and I see those exact same things. And sometimes my delivery charges are more than my gas charges. That's what they're doing. Right? It's about how that gas gets to you, who you're paying for. It doesn't help it. It doesn't make it any easier. I guess if you understand it, it's a little bit easier. But they're difficult to work with. So if there's specific NIPSCO related issues, like we're having problems at this job, with this permit, that's something I can do something about.
We just recently dealt with that and delaying a project that cost the town, how much was it?
$300,000.
Because of extra engineer monitoring fees, because they extended it months, so each month you're paying a decent chunk to the engineer to be there monitoring it every day for the federal projects.
What project is that?
The sewer.
Yeah, we just had a meeting, with Baker Tilly and the USDA today. We actually the project should have been finished at the end of August, and we should have been starting to pay our interim loans back August 17th of this month. But now we're having to file paperwork to extend all this because the project's not gonna be finished now until an estimated of March of 2027. So that's a significant amount of additional charges for the inspectors, for the engineers. Probably we do have some contingency money left through the USDA, but this will probably eat into it, which then affects what we're planning on using the contingency money for.
What was that project?
Our wastewater treatment plant and collection system. It's split into two divisions. I believe the division that is affecting the timeline is the Division 2 project.
So if I were to talk to NIPSCO, how would I be able to tell them what project we're talking about? Just the water and waste treatment plant?
Yeah, I would say the treatment plant, located at 120 South Best Street.
What's that project gonna do? I mean, obviously bring you more capacity. What are you gonna do with the capacity? Are you just rebuilding capacity, or what are you doing?
The overall scope of the project is to upgrade the collection system and then as well as the treatment plant. We were on a lead order from IDEM because we were having CSOs and SSOs. We are a combined system in some areas, so some CSOs are allowed, but it was getting to the point where we were SSOing in 7 locations consistently, and they said that we needed to fix the collection system and upgrade the treatment plant to put in a wet weather system to handle the rain events so that we did not SSO in the community any longer.
What's the gas line gonna, is it gas line with the rings?
Gas line,
How does that work in your project?
they had to relocate gas line.
So they just had to relocate the gas line?
There's gas and electricity. I believe that the gas line was just relocating and the electricity was adding and relocating.
And there was a certain point at which they couldn't really do much new work at the project.
Correct, because because we were waiting on
We're
that.
just waiting on them, and they already, for that, means they already had the plan worked out like 3 years ago with the engineers and approved by NIPSCO. NIPSCO hired new people in there and said, well, we don't want to agree to what we already agreed on, and we're talking to you this summer. It just wasn't fair.
What's the delay, and what's the timeframe item put on? When do they like to come back?
As soon as possible.
Yes. The project by item was originally supposed to be completed, I believe, by 2025.
That was agreed upon date, or that's just a?
That was the original order. I don't know what has been modified, but I do know that our last compliance, we were making compliant progress.
Are you making any progress other than that?
With this
Have you
project.
done what you can do other than, you can't do anything else, so it's not you holding it up? So I don't probably understand that.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so they're not gonna find you.
No.
And I think NIPSCO finally did move, like, what, a month ago, a few weeks ago or something.
Yeah, it's been recent, and they're finally
They
starting.
finally moved so that the project can move forward now, but it caused quite a few months of delay.
All right, so that is happening now, so do I need to get involved with that, or no?
They're
I would say
moving
if you
now.
can get them to get us $300,000, absolutely. I mean, that's the real cost to the rest of the rate, right? Since you can delay the project.
If you want restitution, right?
Well, I'm actually seeking legal counsel on that. I've talked to a couple of lawyers. The problem is NIPSCO, I think, has attorneys at a lot of the big law firms. But I'm working at it. I'm getting some positive progress.
Okay.
To see what our legal rights are.
Yeah, because that's the way we can get, they're not gonna cut you check.
We're working on that. I'm seeking legal
Not
counsel.
fast.
So your roads, how are you guys doing with, so you're under 12,500 people in Waterloo, county that's under 50,000. So your project match is 80-20. So you only have to go up 20% of the money, they come up with 80.
You just saved us a bunch of money in our budget,
Yeah.
because I planned for 25%.
Yeah, well, I will tell you, I worked really hard on that, and we offered the bill 1461 a couple of years ago, with Jim Presso. And we were currently arguing about the wheel tax. I believe the wheel tax is a terrible tax, and we're going to soapbox here for a minute. The wheel tax only taxes people in your community. But those aren't the only people that use your roads. And in District 52, which is the world I live in, is how do I help District 52? We've got major corridors, gas stations. We've got 69, 6, 8, 3 is close to me in Yoel County. 20 is not far away, 4 is not far away, 327, and all the gas stations. So what I've proposed, and I've been working on for 3 years, is a tax that would replace the wheel tax. That would throw the wheel tax out, and you would get a tax at the pump, and where the fuel tax is collected, the money stays there. So everybody that gets gas out there, will sit in the parking lot of Hastings, you're gonna see a lot of Kentucky, a lot of Michigan, I want there, and you actually get more money under my plan, and more people pay less money. Because you're getting people that come through. I also think the wheel tax is unfair because I drive 30,000 miles a year. And I'm gonna pay exactly the same as my mom who drives 1,500 miles a year. It's not fair. And that's, as a conservative, I believe in taxing use. If you use it, you pay for it. If you don't use it, you don't pay for it. In so much as you can establish that. So that's what I'm trying to do with that. But kind of weave that back into, are you applying for your community crossing grants every chance you can get? You know, it's on paper, you don't have to actually, if you get the money, you have to have the money. But to apply, you know, you can always say, we're gonna apply, we're gonna earmark this money. If we get it, we use it. If we don't, we still get that money to do somewhere else. So I encourage you, if I can help you with that in any way, let me know.
In the past, we've been pretty successful with our CCMG projects. That is, when I sit down with the street department to do their budget, we look 5 years out, what roads are we gonna be doing? What is our 20% match gonna be? in the future to try to save up for those projects. Without Center Street, we wouldn't have been able to do all of the, or without CCD, we wouldn't have been able to do Center Street. And, especially all the infrastructure initiatives that we did with the project, because it alleviates some of that stress on us. But we're also trying to look at our infrastructure under the roads before we dig them up and redo them, and that's where I think we're running into more of the financial strain of trying to get some of our water and sewer under the roads. But we do have plans for the season and going forward.
Good, I hope so. We have a dedicated fund that was able to secure, here in the county, under 50,000, we have a dedicated fund just for us. Nobody else, none of the big communities can touch it. That's only for everybody. Coincidentally, every county in District 52 is under 50,000. So all of District 52 has the benefit of taking that money. I was surprised and disappointed that Marion County, City of Indianapolis, gave them $50 million for the roads. I don't know if anybody's read Indy, but it's pretty bad. But we had a big push. The catch was, they had that $50 million to match us. And if they didn't have the $50 million to match us, they didn't get the $50 million. And then that $50 million came back to all of us. So most of us did not think they were going to raise their wheel tax in Marion County, which they just did yesterday. So they're going to have their $50 million, and they're going to get. We made it really hard. They couldn't do anything about it. No beautification, no bushes, no landscaping, no bike trails, maintenance, and no new roads, just maintaining what they have. So it really is a need for us. Roads, they're down in the area. I was hoping that we could get that, because that would just mean the rest of us more money to share here, which is what I hear. Otherwise, roads,
There is one other thing, and I have just kind of started delving into it because I don't know as much about it, but I do know that we've had issues the past several years through the last 2 town managers trying to get it resolved, and it has not apparently been resolved. But according to the state, our road inventory differs than what we actually have, which I'm not exactly sure. The state thinks we have less road than we do mile-wise. So I believe that affects some of the funding coming in.
yeah, they think you got less than,
Yes.
how many do you think, how many miles?
That I'm not 100% sure of. I was speaking with our street supervisor, superintendent, last Friday to try to figure out how to get into that so that I can see these things, and kind of help try to get this resolved. So
What do you think?
I honestly don't know the answer to that.
How many miles are they off? Or how many blocks are they off?
I don't know the answer to that either.
Can you let me know?
Yes, I can.
Give me a
I can
answer.
find that answer out.
I mean, I can certainly ask them, and you asked them and they've not given you an answer, which is concerning. How did you ask them? When did you ask them?
I have personally not yet. I know that the last 2 town managers had some sort of paperwork, but I don't have access to any of that. So I'm just now starting the journey of gathering all my documentation, so it'll probably be something I'll have to follow up with you when I get more.
And what's your role?
I'm the board treasurer, sorry.
And when there is no immediate town manager, the clerk treasurer
I just want to
steps
make
up
sure
to
that we're,
handle a few more things.
and that we're
Yeah.
getting all of our proper funding, because if this affects the budget and the amount of money they're coming in, that's something that we really should get resolved.
Yeah, it definitely matters. I mean, if they do lane miles, it matters.
Yeah.
Okay, so NDOT, I keep kind of letting my mind flow back to economic development, and I'm not sure.
Should we dive into what our situation is right now? And
I've watched a little bit. You're talking about taking your town manager to somebody that would do a town manager job, that also be your economic development coordinator. Is that, you're following that right? I watched your last council.
It is, so I am of the opinion that we need to, utility costs continue to rise, and we're stagnant, not growing. If we don't grow, our costs are going to continue to increase. We need to grow, we need to bring in housing, obviously there's land. We need to bring in industrial. We've got space, we've got traffic, we've got, you've got 6, you've got 61, you've got 12. All of those things you've already said, right? The railroad passes through. What's stopping us? And I go back to, we've got one person that did the job. And not even bad on them, but their focus can't be on economic development all the time, because I've also got to do the administrative tasks. So maybe peel back that layer that says, hey, let council try to help us in the industry. Let that person focus on the economic growth. Get that out there to see if that's something that would help us.
Are you working with the partnership?
We do already.
Okay, so that's going to should be front line. Did they help you with, now this has been a while, to bring the recycling facility here? How long was that?
Just to remember.
Long time ago.
About 15 years.
Yes, I believe so.
Is that the last big thing that came in? No, Newport. Did, they brought their facility in to do their,
The insulated panel, yeah.
great facility network.
Yeah.
That's good, that's great jobs.
And that's what we need, right? We need the housing, we need more jobs.
So you.
That's where I struggle with.
Like what they want is they want water. A lot of it, if you want to give yourself, I'm going to give you a cautionary tale, an opportunity, if you want to go down the road. And I'm not going to be really clear, politically enlightening. But if you are interested in data centers, I will tell you the data center in Hobart writes them a $40 million check. Because they wanted siting. They wanted to be able to find siting where they weren't going to get burnout, they weren't going to get, and they don't want abatements. If you ever get a data center that wants to talk to you, do not give them anything. Make sure that they're going to get a good community partner. Make sure they're not going to pull your water back. You can service it. Make sure they're not going to pull your power infrastructure so you can't have anything else. Make sure they're not going to impact your neighbors. Good community partner. If they check all of those boxes, then give them a list of things you want. Don't let them come here. They did that. Google did that in Fort Wayne. Catastrophic error for them. They should never have given the pavement. They should have made them pay for what they can. And they have the fiscal ability to. So Hobart's minimum budget is $12 million. So they're writing them a check twice that area. So whether you, I'm not going to take a position on it in my district. I've got people that would want them. I've got people that don't know anything about them. I've got people that hate them all over the place. So if you're looking for something like that, that's one opportunity or a threat depending on how you look at it. But make sure your community wants it. Most industrials want someplace they can site. The infrastructure for them to come is here. So they don't have to worry about going through multiple public meetings, getting to run around. They want to know someplace where they can get fast-tracked in. Again, obviously, you're going back to that first checkbox. Are they going to be a good community partner? Do they meet our goals of what we're doing? How do we expedite them together? And we're meeting with them, talking to them about how you can expedite their cycle. Because they want, if they're looking to locate, if they're looking to locate somewhere, and you've met them, keep in mind, we've met 3 or 4 other people at the same project. We know that St. Joe is going to get a project at 3 other locations across the nation or down to their final list. DeKalb County wasn't their cheapest, it was their best fit, and it happened fastest. That all made sense. So if you look at economic development, it's about siting. If you can get siting ready and get the word out that you are open for business to see somebody's going to be a good partner, you're open and ready, and there are people who are ready to expedite you through the process. You know, I can help you at the state level, you can help you at the local level. Your commissioner in this area is, Miller. He can help at the county level to try and expedite them to become, residents of Waterville. And you just gotta make a case for it. That's really the number one thing. If you've got water, which we do, we should know we've got great water. If you've got good power, we do. If you've got good natural gas, like in NIPSCO, we are exceptionally fortunate with natural gas here. Outside my district is Fremont, similar kind of town, cannot grow. They cannot put any more draw on the gas. And they are too close to the border for NIPSCO to want to extend because they're not going to extend again. It's going to stop. So Waterloo is a little bit like that, as close as Fremont is. But you've got good gas, you have what you need to attract water, fire, gas, energy. All you have to do is worry about the other people that do jobs. The unemployment is pretty low right now. So we see that across the state, places where unemployment is low, employers are trying to decide if your employment is 4 to 5, low 3s, where are the people going to come from? Are they going to cannibalize from other locations? Ideally, theoretically, everybody's leveling off. There are people who are right now in jobs that could level up to something else and open up something for somebody else to level up. But you have to know that. You know what your inventory of available workforce is. So when people come, you can tell them what you got. I've seen that work other places. As far as state resources, recovery development, you know, I'm not sure. The administration, there's been some turnover, economic development, there's some edge grants, there's money there, but those are mostly for businesses and companies that are and they'll pitch that as we want to more than someplace else, but they're going to, economic development, they have a formula where they're looking at Auburn, because they're, it's 9%, it's not, but if it was 9%, we've got available workforce there. Next door, we've got maybe Garrett, and they're only 3%, I don't have a labor force there. So they really take into consideration, I've seen it, it's a pretty elaborate formula. Auburn is trying to get money to where it needs to be, but the squeaky wheel gets paid most. Yeah. So that's really the best I can tell you. Your concept on, I'd have to look at Indiana code to see what code says about town managers. If that's a statutory position, I think it is. That's not a statutory position.
I think there's a statute involving town manager. You don't have to have one, but you can. So you want to make sure any hybrid idea, we either call it something different than town manager if you're doing that, or you add it to your local ordinance. And I would try to make sure it doesn't violate the state statute.
With the last 2 town managers, and it's like, it's a lot. Right? You're working on the administrative and make sure that everything is done. You've got all the boxes checked, it's good, right? And then they're also tasked with growing. And it's proven twice that it's too much for workers. So we've got to find a way to build something back to get that focus solely on growth, in my opinion. I don't claim to know it all, but what we've done twice has not. So we've got to do something.
You're the fiscal manager, just hire 2 people.
I wish.
That's one or nothing.
That's what I thought.
How do you, so you've got some compliance things to deal with. How do you deal with compliance?
So the thought is we've got the department heads who are already at the top of their, they know what needs to be done at the state level with all of their forms. Any additional support would have to come from council.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, council would have to pick up the slack. Make sure your council would have to do, the council would be responsible to make sure all the compliance is done. Everything that you were supposed to do, your attorney, make sure that we weren't missing deadlines, penalized, because that's, that's nonsense money out the door. You miss a deadline, you get penalized. So as long as your council is ready to step up and be more active, as you will be, it's just like your mayor. If you don't have a mayor, the council has to do all the work. If it's not statutorily required, then supposedly do what you want. That's going to be up to you to decide if that is statutorily allowed. If it's not, I need to know, then I need to know what that change looks like, and I can work on it. It's the time to find that out. I'm happy with the legislation right now. I'm happy. So we're down to 90 days. General Assembly has got tons of deadlines, and they are incredibly, sometimes it's down to seconds and minutes. You miss it, it's not a year. We have about 90 days to work on something legislatively, so county law, you need something like that, you need it now. If there's something else legislatively that helps the town, you really need to know that. So that I can, I don't know what that would be. There is something in the code that's causing you grief, then that's right.
I'm not a burning job, but I can look at it. Do a deep dive on it.
Yeah, I'm working for the county, they brought a problem, yesterday, that thing's going to impact anybody inside the city and town, that has to do with how drains are reconstructed or how they are maintained, and how those monies are in silos, so they've got many millions in maintenance that they can't use, and they're real short on reconstruction. So if you do a reconstruction, it's based on a breaker, and they've got a project right now that's like $1,300 an acre. If you have 1 acre, it's a lot of money. Some of these people that live in that area with water drains might have 400 or 500 acres. And that bill is pretty expensive, so they're trying to find it. So they've identified a governmental problem that's absolutely right now in the road. I'm trying to figure out how we can minimize that. So, just as an example, if you identify something at your county level that's the same way, then you just need to make me aware of it. And I will work. I promise you, I might not be able to solve it, but I sure will try. So to keep that. What else? Are you guys?
That's B1.
Yep.
So Renee said, stuff like that.
I think I don't think we're exact. I think it's gonna stunt our growth. I don't think we're gonna lose a whole lot, but it's definitely gonna impede our growth. The lit is the biggest. How that's going to interact with, or how that's gonna play out, I think a lot of that is really gonna fall on how the county handles it.
Yeah, right now, it doesn't sound like they're gonna have an awesome meeting.
It does not appear to be so.
I talked to Dave Dark, I heard that from, Mayor Martin, who's struggling with some days, and Dave's trying to find a way forward for the council if they want to do it or not, because it's not required.
Yeah.
It's an optional meeting, which the General Assembly does something optionally. If it doesn't happen, they normally come back and make it less optional. It also shows, I think the reason we did it, make it optional, is to see how communities work together. Whether it's like ready or not, that was all about watching communities work together. And Northeast Indiana worked together better than anybody in the state. So it's good when we see communities working together. I would imagine, from hearing the must meetings that are happening across the state, lots of municipals are meeting together.
Yeah.
Towns are meeting together.
And we have done that, the municipalities came together, it's like we're all on the same page, but we're fighting the fight. And the county doesn't wanna listen, or, there's not a communication between us, so that's where all we can do is hope that they do the right thing to make us all whole. Because it is feasible, we've all had our numbers right, we've all looked at it, it's all very feasible if everybody, and like I said, the municipalities, we all seem to agree, but if the county will listen, it's just kind of up in the air.
Yeah, there's a big piece of the puzzle that's missing, and who do you use? Who's your financial?
Baker Tilly is
Okay.
ours, they did Auburn's as well.
I know, but they've done them all across the state, and what they don't have, the big piece they don't have is parcel level data for lit, so you don't know who lives here, and who doesn't live here very accurately. So the numbers that we're seeing are worst case a lot across the state, which is the way you do it. You want to make sure you know what your worst case is going to be. But we don't know that. We probably won't know that in another, I don't know, month or so. But with SB one, you hit it absolutely on the head about stopping growth. We were watching local governments across the state grow exceptionally faster than inflation, than the people paying the bill. The people paying the bill, the taxpayers, their income wasn't growing at the same rate that government was. And government was going to, it was, some places I saw 7-10% a year for 5 or 6 years. And it's not very long before we just doubled the budget. And Auburn did a zero-based budget. They threw out the old budget. And I've done budgets. I've done a lot of budgets. And you look at last year's budget, you try and adjust it here or there necessarily, whatever it is. And that's not the way to do it. Because it's not going to change. SB1 is about slowing the growth of government. The next thing you're going to see is, my opinion, is that the General Assembly will start really focusing in on local debt. Because local debt is incentivized. Because if you have local debt, then you are going to get money first because you have to pay that debt. So if you have debt, you're guaranteed to get a larger piece of the taxpayer pie that's coming up. Which is, it's unfortunate. It's not the way it should be.
When you refer to debt, that does exclude utilities, correct?
Yes.
Because they are enterprise.
Yeah, other bonds.
That's what, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that,
The
because
schools
it's
are the
not.
largest piece. The schools are the largest piece of property tax puzzle. You see that everywhere across.
And that has been something that has been brought several times. Well, you're in a good place now, you guys can then take out a GO bond, which is a general obligation bond. Yes, we could, but is that in the best interest of the taxpayers to keep growing? So we have been able to remain debt-free, except for our utilities.
Yeah, there's got to be a way that we can better share what is available amongst all the units, because we see a lot of unit infighting, where one unit is trying to get as much as they can to go to max levy to borrow money. I can't think of an exact example in this area, but we do see that. There's got to be a better way. A lot of talk about property taxes. What do we do about property taxes? We made it so local units and counties can start replacing some of the property taxes with property taxes. My opinion is that it's going to continue to erode as a stable source of revenue, and we're going to find a different way. There's all sorts of opportunities and ideas out there. J.D. Prescott's got a bill. Whether that goes or doesn't go, we're only using it as an example. There's a lot of thought going into what do we do about property taxes. From a governmental standpoint, it works because it's so stable. You don't have large fluctuations where if you have lit and sales tax, you can have a period of time where you have a large valley and a large peak. And how do you pull money back for those valleys that are inevitably going to come? So yeah, we talk about that a lot. But SB1, I do not see significant changes in at least the philosophy of we're trying to save taxpayers money. We're asking governments to continue to try and deliver services, and some of those have gotten very expensive. And I hate to even bring up COVID, but back in COVID, a lot of ARPA money went across the country to units, and then the units would say, okay, well, I've got $500,000. We've always wanted a fire truck that's got a ladder. or they've always needed, you know, whatever it is. So the fire trucks now have tripled in cost because the demand has gone up so much and the waiting lists are so long. You still need school buses, the school companies, school corporations are dealing with buses that used to be 105,000 that are now 225. And, you know, I live and breathe in equipment, and equipment's gone up some, but it's not 100%. And then some. So there's something else going on. There just has to be some other economic factor that deals with demand, where monies were there, orders got placed, these providers are very captive. You can only buy fire trucks from so many people, you can only buy school buses from so many people, so it's costing a lot of money. What do you guys use for fuel? Do you run traditional fuel in your vehicles? How many vehicles do you have? Is it a significant number?
Total vehicles. Police probably, between, I would say our public safety probably has 12 vehicles, the rest of the town probably has about the same 12, so 24.
Okay.
Not all of them are ran year round, obviously, we don't run our plows year round. Not every day do they drive both sewer vehicles or both water vehicles.
It wouldn't make sense to convert on propane.
So, yeah.
I was shunned when I brought up electric cop cars, just saying.
I will say, I run propane vehicles on our route vehicles, and it's a substantial savings. It's a couple dollars a gallon, and you can't tell when you put it on propane versus gas.
Yeah.
And it used to be that there was a major power loss with propane, because the way the vapor chamber and how that worked. But now they're a lot more expensive than they used to be. But you can get into a propane conversion system if the engine's set up for it. For $13,000, I don't know how many miles it's going to $2 a gallon.
Yeah, police use the majority of our fuel.
How often do you use cars? How often do you replace them?
We are on a 2-year rotation, so we get a new police car every 2 years. So it's 7 cars, the oldest car would be 14. It is, and that, the longest, that car is like the pool car, so it doesn't get used, unless there's one in the shop or a reserve to use it.
We talked to state police about using their buying power as being part of a co-op. When they buy the number of vehicles that they buy, they get a better price, they get better warranties. And it doesn't really matter if those cars come in blue, white, brown, black, whatever. So we'll talk to you again this year in our budget hearings. That's something that they could implement where communities could lease cars or buy cars through the state police to the state. So you're not buying them from, you may be buying them at a civil unit right now, and you go to buy them and get a civil, but when you're buying 300-400 cars a year, you get a better deal. Especially now warranties, that's as well, you've got an extra couple of years warranties, which helps because they had some during the tax.
We have still been able to take advantage of discounts for police vehicles. But we have noticed in the past few years when we tried to source vehicles for other departments that they no longer offer the missing discounts or anything like that for us. So that is kind of a struggle for the other departments trying to just sort of those vehicles at a higher price.
We know what they need.
We bought several used police vehicles, right? Just trying to bridge the gap.
Yes.
So it's not always about buying a newest.
You guys buy police.
Like,
What else? What else is going on?
I kind of want to go back to the development stuff again, because we hit on manufacturing in the industry. Right now, Waterloo is mostly going to be mom and pop shops that are available here. And what would it take to get some more franchisees sort of businesses in here. US six, last one of the last things we talked about is US six has so much traffic that goes through it, but there's not a whole lot of stuff that makes people pull off to the side of the road and say, we're gonna spend some time on water. I don't know what that would look like with what the state has available for that, if there is franchise opportunities that people are looking at or whatever the case is. But that side of things as well, of local businesses.
I don't think I don't know that there's a government component in that, as much as there may be an economic development or real estate component in that. There are franchise, we'll just talk about franchise for a second. There are franchise conventions where you can go and find things that fit in your community and try and pitch them. That's all private. So that's their private decision. You got to figure out, come to Waterloo, what's Waterloo need that can be successful, bring the business there. I don't know that the government's going to be able to lot.
You tell me nobody said, hey, I want to put something in Waterloo, and I know you're the guy to talk to, you haven't got that, it's gonna cost you minutes.
I honestly haven't gotten much of that. I've gotten some large manufacturers that come, and their big concern is what's siting like on the what's that gonna be? How's it gonna be for us as we grow? Some big companies, if you can do it, some larger companies want to pay their taxes and want to take the fluctuations. So what they're looking for is, some people call them pilot payment in lieu of taxes. But what it is you look at what the tax bill is going to be, and then you buy it. And you say, this is what your taxes will be for the next 10 years. Similar to a phase-in, except you're not phasing anything. You're just saying, this is going to be your tax for X period of time. That helps them if they're doing a large project, and you're doing, 20 million or more. I talked to somebody recently that had they were doing a $1.2 billion project, and they were financing a lot of it. So knowing all of the costs and stabilizing them is very important. So being aware of what the needs are and they want to come here is important. And most, if not all of it, are understanding taxes are part of it. But they just want to make sure that it's stable. So if you think outside the box like that, it makes that siting more appealing to them. And say make sure that you're keeping your companies that are here, so you're paying taxes and people are working there and buying things in your community. And do whatever you can to keep them here and keep them growing, make it so you're a logical choice. But as far as the government plan, I'm not aware of anything that the government would lean in and say, well, it's okay. Balance. Most of the retail stuff and restaurants still get almost no governmental help.
So then you're saying that it's better than just have a standard level of tax that goes through the period instead of a rating.
So it depends on if you want to phase something in, just to make you know how that works. You're going to pay nothing the first year and then phase in over time. It's abatements that have largely gotten a lot of bad press. If people aren't paying taxes at all, so that's not the case. It's just you're slowing their how that rolls off. But if you're able to say we can lock your property taxes at this, instead of your life by law, and say this is what you're going to pay, then that helps these companies put that in their P&L and put it in the forecasts, and they go to their financial institutions. That's just one more thing that it makes sense and it's easy, and they can move on to something. Their inputs are going to be very low. You don't know if you're making hard hires, your rubber components can be varied in cost. So anything that a business can lock into a fixed cost makes things more stable and more attractive. So if you're able to find some way to do that, I don't know if they're in a position to spec out, doing sort of spec buildings.
Possibly.
Yeah, you can do something like that. That's you're getting into a gambling game of, we're going to invest money into this project, and if we build it, will they actually come?
Yeah. We have to have a pretty good idea of the spec at that point, like, I come in,
You could do design build, I mean, there's something like to, kind of take the risk away from, somebody wants to put something in and build it and turn it over to a public, private partnership.
yeah,
And turn it over or lease it to use it as revenue stream. And so much as code lets you do that.
Redevelopment discussed that several years ago with the downtown, was working with the developer to help build it and then turn it over to them. And then that kind of got put on hold until, this is the developers, we had a developer roundtable. The consensus for us, we were there, was most developers didn't want to develop a town that wasn't investing in itself. So how do we invest in ourselves to show developers we're in it too? So we've spent the last few years really trying to invest in ourselves, upgrade our infrastructure, upgrade our roads, upgrade the municipal buildings.
I want to pivot off of that statement there and kind of one of the questions I had. That question starts with us, our town's not invested in themselves. Specifically, what do you see different than, say, Ashley, Indiana is doing specifically on the DeKalb County side that we're not doing? Why is Ashley doing so much better than Waterloo?
So I've seen some things that actually, when the Dollar General facility came, there was, I remember roads had to be put in, water had to be run. I remember specifically they had to have the ability to have, I think, 300,000 gallons of water on hand for fire suppression. I think it's a matter of figuring out what they needed, what made the decision easy. When you have somebody that speaks their language, that understands that corporate culture and how those corporations are built, then that helps a lot. So for the back to your economic development person, that'd be somebody who knows how to do that. Get somebody that was in corporate life or in corporate real estate, help you get some sight. But that's gonna be what it is.
And actually doesn't have a town manager, so I don't know who they really have in that role that advocates and.
Right, largely, Calcutta partnership would be my guess.
I would venture to guess. So I know that when big things like that, they also have looked at Waterloo for potential projects, and a lot of times it comes down to space, and they have a lot, actually has a lot more open land than what we necessarily do. And then the infrastructure.
Do you own any land that you could convert to industrial that's available?
The only land we own is, the downtown lot.
That was just the economic development tail, the Chicago Bears. That was a big, huge benefit. Camden owns almost all of the land where the stadium is like. So that
You
was.
can use that as a playing card.
It was also.
Arnold does that a lot too. They'll buy, their redevelopment will purchase land. That way they can take it to a developer and negotiate. Well, we'll give you this land if you do this for us. So I think getting our redevelopment and to drive more land purchases to be able to use in negotiations would be beneficial.
the purchase agreement,
There is.
Yeah, I think that helps, because it really is, there's a lot of siting and how fast can I get my building? So let me ask you about residential. Residential is problematic everywhere. What do you think of residential?
Well,
Keep mind the permits.
and that was gonna be a question I wanted to ask too, is in the situation that we're in, housing is also kind of stagnant in this town. What would be more pivotal in a situation where our community is, where we don't necessarily have a lot of industry growth, but also our new housing is basically next to none. I mean, we've got a few houses popping up here and there. Should that economic development person. Should they be focusing more on residential at this point, or, industrial?
So developers, real estate developers, one of their major struggles right off the bat is infrastructure, roads, sewers, water, gas, internet, getting all of that to where houses are, and all upfront cost, where they're not recovering anything on the back end. So, you could have a shovel-ready site for industrial, why couldn't you have a shovel-ready site for homes where you have the land, you've got the initial road, you just dropped in the asphalt, dropped in your curbs, got water, utilities in there, and they can scalable so that you start, it's got 5 building lots on each side. It's not, you'll find a spot that you don't have to go to gas or water, and have to go to water where you are, where your existing utilities are. Because if you can take that away, then we're speaking language of real estate developers, okay, and housing is not to worry about the costs of the roads.
And what if we incentivize that?
That could be huge instead of
So would, but from like a redevelopment standpoint, would say $150,000, is that a lot to a developer for something like this? Or are they looking like $500,000? What's the number that like sparks them? That you're saying?
well, I can say if you put it on paper, how much would it cost to put a road in that's 500 feet? How much would it cost to put sewers and water as much as you can? So is that something that we want to do? Is that something that we can deal with? We just want to have to deal with some building. We're just going to come and build houses for you. We come build 20 houses. We'll pay infrastructure costs for the road, the sewers, and water. We'll get that. And, you don't want to deal with gas. You're talking about gas.
Because I think that's what a lot of our redevelopment commissions in the past and different boards have struggled with is, at least when I was researching this before, you kind of bring up those topics and then why they're, ignore that it exists, or like, oh, we don't want to do that, this should be only their investment. It's hard to get them to change their perspective on things, to say, you gotta give some to get some. Because you really have to be able to commit, we'll give you $300,000 for roads, or we'll give you, we'll put this in our taps, we'll assist with that. I think that's what we really need to work on.
You gotta think about it. That's how we used to be. Developers bear all the costs and everything. But that's how it is. Maybe some place where people clamoring and building fast, they can stop them off. Westfield. Sure. Absolute fast. Place where that's not happening. That's where it's not the same.
And that's one of the things too is I brought up, because I've talked about small businesses, locating or starting up. And the biggest thing that, I would try to bring towards council or committees, the big number one concern is things, utilities and water too are astronomical. What do water do? We to offer Hamilton and our utility rates are half. Like, that's another big hurdle that we run into.
To be fair, utility rates offered for residential, utility rates offered for commercial are very, it's municipal, and that's how it's established. Your power rate, you got to pay municipal power there for house and up to the businesses. It's a big difference.
And our utilities, do not differentiate whether you're a commercial person or a residential user. Your commercial users do pay the same rate as your, unless you exceed a certain amount. But if you're British Heights, even though yes, you're commercial, but you're still only using less than 1,000 gallons a month, you're paying the same as a resident who is using 1,000 gallons.
But that's just some of the concerns I've had, people that have had businesses in Waterloo or looked at Waterloo, they look at the rates and, I've seen them go to Angola or Ashley, for example, because it was cheaper, and it's frustrating to hear. But
If you lost something based entirely on utility rates for a non-utility intensive user, you don't know that. I think you'd lose an SEI over utility rate because of how that's class.
But there's a lot of people that don't look at the big picture, and that's kind of like you just mentioned, it's hard to get people to change their perspective on things and understand, we do have other areas, we've got the infrastructure, the roadways, the access to the highways that Josh mentioned.
That's your development position. You want to as a person that can cheerlead that and have all of that in easily 10-second soundbite, catch the attention. You're fishing, you just need to see the shiny thing for a second. And catch your attention and then start really selling them on what your community can do. Especially if it's for business, and keep in mind, they're in business to make money. That's what they're doing. And they're going to try and limit the costs when they can, when it makes sense. I'll go back to taxes. It does not make sense to try and circumvent taxes uniformly. Because that just, this isn't the same, the roads aren't the same, the communities aren't the same. And I'm not trying to be advocate for taxes then, but police officers get paid, fire trucks get paid. You need to have that sort of thing. So you just have to make it make sense for them. And because it's maybe your idea of economic development coordinator full-time, that's going to be up to you guys. It's got to be a little control issue. So I believe it's good.
Do you think there's any sort of reports or data points that we should be seeking out in order to hit that phase of our life? Whether it be average traffic, which I'm sure we can pull from.
NERC would have that, but also a lot of these reports are readily available at the DeKalb Economic Development.
We need to set up a meeting with them again.
That's, and
$10,000 worth.
they definitely can bring that to the table when developers are here. I think it's been noted, one of our struggles is having site-ready places for people to go in. There's been a lot of times people have wanted to come in, but we don't have the facilities, and by the time we were able to coordinate a meeting with the person who owns the land and whether or not they may or may not want to sell it for future development, well, then they can go to another time. There is somebody who's ready to sell and ready to go. So I think doing the pre-legwork of getting these parcels ready to go and knowing what that number is, that way when it's go time, you can go. I think that's where, and in a lot of the developers roundtables, it was things like that, like the Economic Development Commission came in and they took drone footage of different parcels of land and who the owners were and if they were willing to sell, what would they be willing to sell for. So I think those kinds of things are definitely a good place to start and a good notebook to have.
Maybe start getting them under contract, because there's a value of a parcel now, and then there's a value of that same parcel and something else.
Yes.
So if somebody has a price in mind that they want, and it's agreeable to both sides, you can get under contract, and the contract doesn't cost you $50,000 or whatever, it just costs you something, because you're gonna lock up their land for a period of time. And then you're not overly committed, but you've got the rights to purchase. And then you work real hard on finding somebody to go on that land, and then you can engage your contract. Where you've got a contract out. All of a sudden, company B says, hey, I'm shopping what I'm doing. Everybody with land that makes sense for company B. You're going to do everything that happens. So you got to do some forward thinking about how you can box something off. That works for both parties.
One thing that I'm not sure you might be able to help with, it's kind of two unrelated topics. Specifically, I wanted to ask about US 6 safety. One of the topics we've had discussed multiple times, and the state kind of comes in and says, no, you can't really do anything. Would be this corner here. There's a lot of people that run across 6 to try and get to Valley General. There's no sidewalks or any sort of safety for them to get there. Is that something that you've worked with other communities in the past? Because I see it all the time that there's kids running out in front of semis or cars, and it's sad. You know, states going up.
I would say if you're gonna, as you go through zoning, if somebody's gonna put something new in, you kind of look at it like, use as much as you can. I worked with INDOT in the city of Auburn, State Road 8, for sidewalks. And the state's generally pretty agreeable to doing easements for sidewalks, but they're not gonna pay for it.
And that's exactly what they said when we asked. They said, go ahead, put in a sidewalk, but it's on you. And then also the issue is the drainage there. So there's not physically room without redirecting drainage to add a sidewalk. And that's where it comes back on, because the state gave us the blessing to do the work, but we have to find a way to pay for it.
And that's the frustrating part, so I don't know if there's any grants or anything at all that you're aware of
I
that.
mean, CCMG, you can do something like that, you could incorporate it to, one of your projects.
But with it being a state road, we can't use CCMG on that
You
road.
probably have to go behind it. You could go behind it by the cemetery or make some sort of access road to the back. If that's really, an issue, that might be less expensive than trying to deal with drainage on 6. So if that drainage project doesn't drain like it's supposed to, and you did it,
Then
and
it's
US 6, yeah, come back.
That's the biggest frustration I see, is, we talk about cost and everything, and everyone says, everything's expensive, and here you go, but the second it gets hit by something, the cost doesn't matter, in my opinion.
Yeah, I looked at a lot of traffic studies, and there's a message about State Road 8 from County Road 35 to State Road 1. And how narrow it is, and the lack of shoulders, and they're pretty reasonable about shoulders, because they want shoulders there. But when they scale it, because you can only do what you do financially. They're looking for roads that are in much worse shape than they're. So what they did do is they put some traction material in some of the S-curves and curvy areas. I would like to see it straightened out, but I don't see that happening. It's 37 down around Grable and Harlan, which is going to get some major attention because they've had some pretty horrendous accidents. They've got some issues there.
Yeah, it's just, that corner there seems to be a pretty big intersection where you do see a lot of crashes and, pedestrian traffic. And then out there at the Auburn Esther Road, which is kind of at 27, there's a ton of accidents there all the
And they just
time.
took away the blinky light.
Yep. They took away the blinking.
I drove by the other day, it's gone.
They put flashing stop signs here.
Our stop signs now, but the yellow line is gone.
Yeah, so I looked right out there, and that's another thing that I wanted to bring up, like, is there any feedback that, I think that's kind of our cutoff line right there for,
The town,
yeah.
27 is where the stop is.
Is there any sort of feedback or assistance or research that can be done to assist with that?
Not much in assistance, but what they'll do is, so there's intersections like that all. I think County Road 19 and State Road 8, by Jess. You take your life in your hands at certain times of the day. Go stop and turn the other way.
Yeah.
And there's that hump there, and it has a lot to do with number of cars per day, number of accidents. Are the accidents serious? They're engineers, they're very data oriented. And when they see something, they help produce about it. Wasn't going to help with Hamilton, got a school zone speed limit reduction out in front of their school, which they really need to have, because that area, right there, curve right there.
Comes right down where the
The
activity
kids, they can move out of place, buses, people working there, and they're able to do something, but it's all data driven, it's all about severity of accidents, number of accidents, sight lines, speed limits, and all that, and it goes, figure that the engineers.
You had asked previously, Josh, about reducing the speed on 6th Avenue, and that was pretty much their response.
They say, we talked about reducing speed, they talk about driver compliance rates. So you can reduce the speed, but if the speed limit's 55 now, are they compliant with 55? If you reduce it to 45, are they gonna be compliant because you lowered it to 45? Or some people are gonna be compliant, and other people are gonna be compliant, and does that increase your risk factors? I had never thought about that until I started talking to the engineers, and I told them to sit down in a quiet room and unscramble my brain for a second, and realize that, yeah, that does make total sense. If they're not gonna be compliant, lowering the speed limit will have some people being compliant, other people not being compliant, and you'd actually be more dangerous.
That's where it's like, I brought up the sidewalk and everything there, I forgot that was a discussion we had. But, you know, it almost makes sense to just find an alternative around it versus lowering the speed, because 80% of the people will probably follow up with 20% of it, when employees leave the problem anyway, are still gonna be the cause.
And probably narrow that number down to
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So, no, I don't think they would grant the money to do something. Yes, I think they'd do it if the engineering, the cycling, bad. Over, up by, you're talking about up by Meridian, right, the National Road?
Yeah.
That intersection, and then right, the other one is right here, center, and
Yeah, the sightlines at the Auburn Ashley roads from three ways are excellent. You've got the sightline coming north from Auburn Ashley, you've got a great sightline there. You've got a great sightline on 6 either way for thousands of feet.
Yep.
Straight and flat. They're coming south on the Auburn Ashley road, you come over that hill, and that's when you run into trouble. You got the same problem out by the metal recycling plant, where you've got that crossroad that runs east and west of a big hill. I mean, that's another one where you gotta pay real close attention, because if somebody's speeding and compliant, come over that hill, you don't have a lot of time to clear the
that's
intersection.
the direction most accidents, I think, happen from,
Yeah,
in both of those places.
that's,
Yes.
yeah.
Here, they just run into the same house.
I go to that intersection a lot. I'm aware of that.
Those next door, we did a couple times, too.
That has all of it.
Yeah, I saw
I think that was when
Place
people
your-
in the parking
place your
lot.
window recently.
Yeah.
One thing that I also want to bring up that I don't think has been discussed or is discussed enough, is we really struggle in this community with finding stuff for kids to do, youth tasks, youth ideas, and we see it a lot in crime rates and juveniles. You know, people blame the police around here for not doing enough. Well, they don't understand how the legal system works. So I think the right thing to do would be, you know, find stuff to occupy these kids or help them. Is that something you've seen these smaller communities in your district do, or do you have any ideas for us?
Yeah, I see a lot of private money doing things like that. 4 or 5, I think we get something that what used to be the CCC, you can see some new things there. You got a sidewalk that goes all the way there from Waterloo, so that makes it easier. There is some money that comes to Northeast Indiana, so you're thinking about any sort of revenue through the strategic partnership. And it's, they have money for projects. So recently they did childcare. I think $5 million with childcare, but that had employers had to match that. There was some match. Because you're always trying to, one-to-one is a terrible match, but they'll take it, and they're typically they'll do something like 5, 6, 7 times to 1. So if $1 million, somebody will get $5 million for a project, and you can always apply it then. You're gonna have to have a project that you can go and pitch and say, this is what we're gonna do, whatever it is that you're gonna do, if it's a splash pad, or do a pool, because there's expensive to maintain and keep going. But
And that's something we've discussed before, is, you know, splash pads and stuff like that. And I'm just thinking of like, you know, something along those lines, or a place kids can go to like actually, you know, play games together and, you know, have some form of supervision.
if you're thinking about a strategic opportunity, I mean, I know they're expensive, the pool is, you know, in Garrett. But if you live in and around this area and you want to go swimming, you're gonna go to Garrett. You're gonna go to a buddy's pond,
Or you're gonna go to the creek down there.
If you're gonna go to Cocaine Beach or to Hamilton Beach, it's not convenient. If you want to bring people to your community, look for something that they're going somewhere else to get. It just makes sense. But pools are super expensive.
Splash pad's probably a little bit more cost effective for it.
Yeah, so if you do a splash pad, just another caution to hail, don't do a recycled water because it's just like a pool. And the water goes, played in, and it's got to be filtered and cleaned, and then you reuse it. If you use once and done, it's a little different. I'm trying to help Auburn through a project like that right now. The item looks at a regenerative pool, recycling pool, and a once and done pool the same. It doesn't make any sense because if you're using it once and gone, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much water. If you do it once and gone, then you don't have to treat it. Like, you only have to treat it if it's being used. So
What about Leo? I think Leo has a new, fairly new splash pad down there on Schwartz Road and,
it's the very popular.
Leo is mostly on wells though, I believe.
What about Angola? They have a new park.
I'm not sure about that, but I believe Leo, the town of Leo is mostly on wells, so it's wouldn't necessarily be treated water either way. So that's something we looked at in the past was the difference in whether we could pull untreated water and just dump it versus treating it and then retreating it to reuse it. Because the cost of treating water to go in the tower, to pull it from the tower, is very expensive. And then who absorbs that cost for treating the water to just be dumped out in the park?
Depends on the water usage and
Yeah.
the water capacity to do it, and where that water's gonna end up. And so, I don't think that splash pads are that enormous of a water consumer. You can figure out a way to make them really efficient. But those are popular, so if you wanna bring people to your community to learn something that they can't get, they're going somewhere else to get it, it's far away. And that's been a problem since Auburn closed it. Because there just hasn't been a real place to, I grew up here, I had swim trunks that had patches for membership all over, and I was there all the time or something. Fill out. What else you got?
Renee, did the Lincoln Street project with the state, did that ever get anywhere, or is that something you might be able to assist with? If not?
I don't know the answer to that. The last I have heard was we had to update our form
Okay.
to a new form because the state ended up deciding to change all their forms magically at once. So we redid that, and as far as I know, it's in the hands of the county.
Yeah, all you had to change from, I watched that your last meeting, you talked about
Yeah.
that. So all you had to do is change. your
Did that, but it's, the county is the one who will bid the entirety of the project. So they're taking point on everything as far as.
That was just one of the things, like, when I
That's
talked
not
to
what you can do.
council, I wanted
As
to
far
make
as
sure,
I know,
because it's never been done, so.
And government changes for it.
Yeah,
Government governments.
I did 3 or 2 or 3 of them, so. But they, the county will bid the entirety of the project. And we will with
So
them.
my bill has been Parker, the highway superintendent, email, maybe with the one I thought like where to whatever one this is.
We updated the form at our last meeting.
Okay, so if you want, maybe you could reach out to Ben and just
Yeah, I
ask
know.
him, that might restart things.
Some meeting on the door.
Yeah.
What else?
I've got like 4 more, but I feel like I'm taking over, so I don't want to keep going.
Keep coming.
One question I have, you mentioned the overpass project that we would have the potential to do. How would that, is there a possibility that it can be done at a location where there used to be a grade level crossing that is no longer there?
I don't know. Maybe whatever makes sense. I found that as much as you can make out of government, really government wants to efficiently make sense solution. And Norfolk and Southern, they're gonna be saying, you've got a great pattern that you can look at, and you can interact with, that you can pull information from, is the folks who worked on the Boston project, how they did it, how it worked, and then you can just replicate that.
Because it's just sitting there in my head, Washington Street right over here, there used to be a crossing, I know the state had some land that potentially been contaminated or cleaned up, and it's just sat empty, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, it's just something that would maybe be used as a backup if, all our crossings were closed off. I know it's just me throwing something out there, but that's just something to kind of keep in the back of your pocket as, a backup alternative route.
I don't think they would move it from a main street, move it off to another street and redirect traffic around that way.
Yeah, the expense of making a new left turn, right turn, left turn, get back out to the other road, doesn't make sense. Or under, the under is a lot more expensive.
I just be throwing something out there because it is right there, and it's, I don't like how Corona kind of basically wiped out their downtown per se.
Yeah, and you would, if you put it right there, when I was, trying to get here early, I think there's still police officers looking for me about offering. I was thinking, it's only gonna be worse if there's a train, because I'm gonna sit there and, you never know how long you're gonna be. And if it's a passenger train, you're gonna sit there and police is 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So, yeah, and you guys run on, well, you kind of in the middle, so you probably run on Butler EMS, Albany EMS, they come from both ways.
Yeah, it seems to come both ways.
Yeah, isn't it that?
It just depends on what curfew one is typically.
It's a big deal. I mean, that's a big deal. You can walk off.
Ever seen my better answer to that one?
Diagnosis in both directions, depending upon what's available, if it's available.
Yeah, normally it seems like they move, it's like Butler will move east with Auburn running west somewhere. It seems like there's quite a orchestrated move. And then trucks are out, they're out all the time. Fire trucks are running medics. Your fire trucks running medics too. You do medical calls? Yeah, you do medical calls?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, 80% of our calls are
I hear that all over the time. I hear that, it just seems like that's just like, fire trucks showing up, what do they do? Are they there because they're there? Is 80% of your calls because they're there first? They can be there fast, is that what it is?
we can be there before they get there usually.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, if you can be there in an emergency, you're going to get faster than that. If you weren't, then it just doesn't go through the issue.
Wouldn't an underpass take up less room than an overpass?
Yeah, it's like, correct. You mean, built that way?
It just seems like that would work out better for the town of Waterloo as an underpass.
I think it would too, honestly. I've been thinking about it. The only reason I brought up the Washington Street is because I don't want to destroy downtown. I think it would be terrible right here. And it's like, an underpass would be great, but there's so much, I feel like, infrastructure under there. Number one. Number two.
Well, they're not going to want to interrupt the trains.
Exactly.
They won't interrupt the trains. Like, we're digging underneath them. Those trains are supposed to go, they ran it there. Yeah. So you're.
But I would imagine underpasses are gonna
See,
be,
that goes with Taylor.
I would imagine they're gonna be cheaper to maintain.
I always thought, I never could figure out how Garrett's worked because it's always so red. Garrett was always historically in Calhoun County, if you look like really historically, the glaciers are huge, the rain, and
Yeah.
the number of drains in DeKalb County versus Allen County versus Wells, and you go farther away from all the wet that we have. How much water do you have that's 5 feet down, and how do you keep it out?
That sump pumps a lot of them.
Forever.
You don't have to go very far out and get water there either. You tried to put an underpass there, just like Garrett, when they started putting theirs down. Remember how much water was
Yes, I do.
pumped out of there?
Unbelievable.
Trying to build it.
I think about it every time I drive under that. Because you know it's a water tank.
It was on a swamp.
Yeah. Most of DeKalb County was.
Yeah,
We've done a pretty good job of training this.
and Altona, they had the over, the bridge over Altona.
You're taking your life in your hands.
I
remember that.
I got beer to beer on Suburbans, they don't go together.
Yeah,
Just catch some floats on the side.
One thing too that I always hear about is, public safety buildings and the upgrades and potentially combining, police and fire in one building. Do you see a lot of communities doing that? That you visited?
So Auburn does it. Here it has police and fire in one location. It's something, yes, I mean, it's just whatever fits your community. If I was gonna build something, I would look for as many tenants, whatever it is, whether it's private or government, as many tenants, because like we need one roof, if I put 3 ends and still need one roof. Still need to with one HVAC system, I think it's economies of scale for doing that. So it makes sense, but I think, if I remember the history of it, the Waterloo Police Department used to be a little bit down the street, and then they moved over here maybe 15, 20 years ago. On the corner, so I don't know what's next.
That's just one of those things there's been discussion of the potential to go out and build and combine. And there's been strong feelings from both sides, so.
I think initially it came to be, like Ben said, was to get as many units under one roof to lower the overhead cost and upkeep of multiple buildings, and they would have less land to worry about maintaining, less.
Yeah, we hope for that. I was here at the county council when we did the central dispatch, and we built that because at the time, still, you can have communities collaborate together. That facility could have gone Ohio, because those people would still come to work from Lyons County. And when the radio calls came in and out, you would never know that the dispatch was in Waterloo, Indiana. We built it so that we were constant. At the time, Steuben County was, and they still be struggling with some of their equipment. They had open sky and curbside. We had hoped some that they might say, it just makes more sense for us to live in Waterloo with our people, and our commute, with our people, our cars and EMS and fire trucks and everything different. Because you have to do that. There's certain things like in County, you probably have to get back to the end where the high school is. But you get up in Steuben County, I can turn around, you have some of this stuff. So we get high hopes that come to fruition in that part. So yeah, I think, making buildings that are multi-use is the way to go.
Have you seen any state funding for stuff like that, or is that kind of you're on your own situation?
No, because there's public safety, like tax, the things that you're gonna see are gonna be local funding sources. I can't think of any from the state monies that, just look at the state budget today, we're building budget.
So hypothetically, I personally don't like the data center comment, but is that something that you've seen something, say,
See it both ways.
you see something like Amazon wants to put a warehouse in, and you're like, okay, we need to, build out public safety. Could you assist with a project like that?
100%, yeah, absolutely. That's why I always say it. There's people that love them, there's people that hate them, there's people that don't. You have to make sure they're going to be a good community partner. If they're going to be a good community partner, we need to come together and say, okay, we get it, that makes sense to us. For whatever reason, then write down your list of what you need. Get a data center, anything.
When you look at automotive manufacturing, what Marshall, Michigan did something with Ford Stellantis with a battery factory, and making a bunch of maintenance, and then it didn't pan out. And I think that's something you really got to worry about is, we stretch our hand out too much and the project falls through, we're screwed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we don't make ourselves look friendly to them,
Yes, it's going to win and mitigate risk. That's the thing. It doesn't matter if you're government or private. My business, I try to mitigate risk. That's why you buy insurance, and that's why you put insurance how much you insure yourself for, and how much responsibility you want to have. You gotta mitigate risk, but yeah, Cokeville had some battery plans too, that would be all their age, I'm not sure, but we're not wrapping them up now, do something else. But the other side of that, we've got.
I think they try to minimum standard, like transmission factor or something like that.
So when you buy the transmission factory, the price of it, it's dark. All roads are off of it. That's one they did. In Warsaw, they were able to get legal to build a slate tractor. And those will start coming off the line in a couple months, I guess. So they work to that. I don't know I know the state rep over there. They're talking. So that was a pretty big opportunity.
So when you look at Waterloo, you've been around this area for your entire lifetime, it sounds like. You've seen this community shape and mold into what it is now. Besides trains, I know we have crossroads and we've got all our transportation hubs. What would you envision this town like? You're not in a meeting with us right now, you're driving through town. What would you say? This would look great. So you've got your Newport, your Blue Scope right next to the highway. Do you see that building out, or are you driving through downtown and you're like, I see 10 mom and pop shops with a restaurant here and X, Y, Z there? Because I assume you drive 30,000 miles a year, you see a lot of these small towns, so.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of small towns that are shuttered. I've seen a lot of small towns that have invested in facade grants. Those are things that is remote here. You can really through facade grants and try and encourage people to make the downtown look as attractive, as appealing as possible. Downtowns always struggle with parking. And, as it is now, everybody drives and there's a car and no parking. Auburn deals the same thing. Fort Wayne deals the same thing. Got parking. Parking is a thing. It's how do I get? I guess I take it all the way back to the how many people belong to Lions and they're active like we used to be Columbus, so that everybody's in such a big hurry. Travel ball and kids and school and I was that way with my kids. I was always super busy and need to go somewhere. I still do that now to stay rep. I'm running from A to B as fast as I can go. So it gets me in and out fast.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that. I'm just going to say a short story. It's kind of weird. I witnessed a car crash that happened up in Pioneer, Ohio, and I had to go to court as a witness to someone that was involved in it. And it was hilarious to me that I went to the taqueria, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden the lady that was in the crash that I met Pioneer pulls in, and she mentioned, oh, my kid went to volleyball or XYZ down in Fort Wayne, and literally this was a stop right on the drive. So right along the drive, stopped real quick. So it's almost like you mentioned there, we're almost maybe not necessarily focusing on community members to get them to stop at these places that we're enticing, but maybe trying to get the long distance traveler or the commuter.
Yeah, I think about, there's all sorts of factors that go into it. Auburn wanted to have some higher education, and Scott was on that council, we were talking about it. The problem was, we were imperfectly located right in between Fort Wayne IPFW, Ivy Tech, Trine, which was then, and it just didn't make sense. It was something that we could never get. There's Waterloo in that same spot. Who's your traveler? You identify who you can pick off your biggest road, which is 6. Well, how do you get trucks to stop? Well, trucks have a place to stop. They have a place to stop and stop them because they've got.
I think we used to have, 4 truck stops in this town?
Pagans was the last one. I remember Pagans.
We had Pagans, there was one on that end of the town, the north end of town, where you started. Yeah.
Well, something else that we brought up at the last council meeting was the idea that the casino could very much happen up in Steuben County. I don't know if you got insight on that or not.
Yeah, I can talk about casinos. So you're all gonna see it on the ballot. Everybody that lives in Cal County or Steuben County, you'll see that on the ballot. DeKalb County will say, should inland gaming be allowed in DeKalb County? That's it. You can vote yes, you can vote no, or you can not vote at all. Steuben County has had a very, very organized round. Their government units were united. They were in Indianapolis working, they worked, those guys, Will Howard and Rick Chike and Laughlin and myself, and the Indianapolis North, they saw virtually any other government, they were working it all the time. They're unified up there, I think. If I had to guess, I will tell you this from a state rep perspective, there's days where you're a representative, and there's days when you're a delegate. When you're a representative, people elect you for who you are, what you believe in, and expect you to make the best decision that you can. When you're a delegate, you know exactly where your people are. And when that vote comes in, I will be 100% a delegate, because I will know exactly where DeKalb County is, I know exactly where Steuben County is. I think Steuben County probably gets it done. The Allen County struggles with it. I think the demographic for the location is better in Steuben County, because you've got 69, you've got the toll road, you got 80, you got 20, 120. I think you put people in it. Also, is geographically centered between southern Indiana casinos, Harris, Michigan casinos, Ohio casinos, and Orange County. It's our casinos are Orange County, which is perfectly right, which is a big working spot. That's why they identified Auburn as one. I really want a racetrack in Auburn. I thought that was the best thing since sliced bread. I thought that is just right up there.
You said racetrack, right?
Yeah.
That was Rack and Kelly's.
Yeah.
Video guys.
Yeah.
And that was discussed with Brittany a little bit when the casino was shut down. So we're gonna keep that in the back of our mind, racetrack.
I'll tell you that when that came up, interesting information. I tell you, that came up. If I watched that stuff pretty close, just trying to feel for where the community is, what they want me to do, what for them. Buc-ee's. I can't tell you how many times I heard people say, we don't want a casino, we want a Buc-ee's. And somebody told me, I'm like, a Buc-ee's? And he's like, yeah, man, they got a wall of beef jerky.
Right now, it's pretty bad. Yeah, right on the street. Beaver store, Beaver Mart or something like that.
Apparently, they're well known to sue anyone that kind of sort of looks like their logo a little bit. They have no problem doing it for mom and pops.
Yeah.
I actually just watched a video on it, and they talked about downfalls one few about Tuesdays going in. So it's pretty wild to see the aspects of what people think they want.
Yeah.
And then it actually comes in, like, hey, your data centers, your Buc-ee's, things like that. And you really gotta balance that. Right?
Walmart.
Yep.
Walmart.
You hear so many people complain about grocery stores, about complaining that, we don't do anything for our community or we don't listen to them, but you turn around and you see the same, I'm not trying to be mean to anyone here, but you see the same 5 people show up to a town meeting and you're like, they're all public, everyone should know about this. And if you have such a big problem about it, be vocal about it, say something.
You guys have Buc-ee's here.
Nope.
Yeah.
And that was gonna be a question I had for you. How are you seeing small communities handle that? Because I have a draft of the ordinance I'd like to present to town council.
So we talk about clock cameras a lot right now. It goes all the way from eliminating them, taking them away, to not doing anything. So I think that it would be important for an elected person to make a decision on whether or not clock cameras can be used. So first of all, it's going to be checked. I think it's important that if you talk about clock cameras, that it has to happen at a public meeting. You have to have a statewide standard operating procedure for their use. You have to, on a monthly or quarterly basis, turn over to your elected body at a public meeting the use, who's using them for what. So that somebody doesn't have to do a FOIA request to look at that. Because it's creepy. I've had to look, gone and looked and said, look at your license plate number and.
Well, not other than people, it's wild to see how many times, like my plate alone has been, flagged in the system. And it's crazy to see, you can put in license plates of people that, have committed crimes and the amount of police departments. And what's crazy about it is, say that you're a police officer here in Waterloo, Indiana, and you search the data, it might not come from you, it might come from a police department in Colorado that's actually reporting the data.
If you have a reciprocal agreement.
Correct.
Reciprocal agreement.
But the issue I have with it is Flock actually going to abide by that agreement? Because there have been so many cases behind that where they have went around that agreement and shared data that they weren't supposed to share.
So I have to imagine, you have to read the contract, whatever that is. I mean,
They're gonna say, the state of Indiana doesn't have any sort of, law or regulation around enforcement of these agreements. Yeah.
I think so we're all the way from don't have them at all to totally going to have them. From a general assembly perspective, then we're gonna look at it. We're gonna have public hearings on it, we're gonna come to those things. And listen to what our constituents say, if they want, is it worth giving up freedom for full security? I'm sure they're wrong.
So have you done for less than years old?
For the license plate? So yeah, I didn't actually do it for you. I went in and gave me a tour of it to explain how the system works as a legislator.
Had you been searched?
No, I didn't get searched. I have now because I had to look at my license plate to see where it was. You can see me all over wrong. Where you can't see me, you can see my vehicle. That's creepy.
Too much 1984.
Yeah. I think it's going to be one of those really interesting policy discussions that we're going to have, because it's, you're going to hear the stories about, my daughter was kidnapped and about 4 o'clock I never see her again. And then those stories happen and we know it. All the way to the other side, you've got bad actors who are searching people that they shouldn't be searching. Worry about commercialization of the data. So they see me and somebody gets it. They see me around Walmart. Go right by there. All of a sudden Walmart starts sending me things on my phone. So what's that commercialization look like? And I really wonder what it would be like if we were in COVID all over and we had block cameras and you'd be harassing. I mean, if you're out, you have to be answering why you were traveling. There's some pretty big policy questions.
Well, it's crazy the amount of people that, 20 years ago would say that China's a surveillance state, and we'd be laughing because, we'd say that this is only stuff that happened in China, and here we are, that it's happening in our backyard.
No, this is the UK.
I get
It's
concerned
like, bad.
I get concerned with the slippery slope.
It is.
That's what I get concerned of the slippery slope of now it's license plates and what's it going to be used as.
I have all my own cameras at my house, but I have an offline DVR where, offline access only, but only I have access to the data. It would be much different if, Waterloo had Flock cameras and it was literally off the internet and only, the water.
Same.
Correct.
I would be less concerned if it was a captured data where it was just like body cams, where it's held locally and I don't know right where it is. That makes more sense to me than having it go into the cloud somewhere.
And I know our marshal has, when I was on council, came to us about it, and I think we all shot it down at that time, and I think he's come back a few more times since I've been off council. I can see the positives for him, but at the same time, a lot of the enforcement that's done, happens in this 4 square mile grid. Do we really need to be worrying about the criminals that are, just passing through?
I totally respect it. One perspective and being a representative, I take into account everybody's perspective and this other and that's why I've said it is literally a huge spectrum from don't have them to don't care.
Are there communities in your districts that have passed ordinance that?
No ordinance, no, often asking.
There's just 167.
5 or 6 of them right now. And it's all
Over 10 now.
Yeah, they're all entry points of Auburn. And they're all pointing in towards Auburn. So it's coming into Auburn. They're not getting it that way. we'll see what happens with that. I resisted cameras out on roads for many years. I was on the transportation committee, and I always argued against cameras for that reason. I thought, particularly in construction zones, our workers and everyone is safer if we had a police officer there. And if we're paying the police officer, I felt better about that. I didn't think it was as expensive. Right now in Indianapolis, in construction zones, there's a big art issue in tickets.
But those are so easy to get around because you can see, oh, radar and force camera, I see the camera right there, let me just slow down for the 500 feet, and it's
We
like,
insisted on that being law. That's actually law. And it's a white Dodge Ram trucks.
Yep.
They have lights on top of them, and if you use Waze, be sure to mark them when you go out.
Yep.
Does anybody use Waze?
but like you just mentioned right there, it's required by law, there's already been a law passed for that specific cause, so like you're mentioning, if it comes to fly, definitely something needs to be done.
Yeah, so I think what happens then, a lot of times with passing laws, if something's moving, you're gonna try and get better every step of the way. I think one of the things that made it, I don't approve of the idea that restored it, but it made it less bad, was they have to have signs out.
And I think, you know, if people knew that they were there, I don't know how many documentaries and articles I've watched from people that have literally said, oh, I didn't even know that was there. And it's like, so these people don't even know they're being surveilled without cause, per se.
Flocks.
Yeah.
Let's be realistic though, we're gonna be heading into an age where the way vehicles are set up now, you can be surveilled by GM just as much as you can by any
We already
vehicle
are.
out there.
Telemetry is, I mean, that's
So,
And the Supreme Court's very clear about that. You have no expectation of privacy.
Yeah.
Have none.
my mom freaked out when I got the car, and she's like, can they shut you down? I'm like, they can shut you down. You got it OnStar, you be shut down. It's just a thing.
Crazy. Yeah.
I've got a question for you. I recently started serving on the Bosch task force.
Yeah.
And I know they get a lot of state and federal grants to fund the main part of the trail. Do you see the state continuing to support that idea, maybe increasing it?
So under Holcomb, I did. We get the next level trails initiative. So I saw that. Under the Braun administration, Mike has gotten, got some fiscal forecast last April that kind of shook us all to the core. It's turned out to not be as bad, but I see things that, because you can only use compassion to check the clouds. And if we keep going and trending the way I think we are, we're growing some, our revenues are growing, we had 3.9 billion in the bank, which is a little more than we need, I think. Yeah, I think there'll be some funding there, but it all depends on how much funding is there that we can do that. Every state agency took about a 10% haircut in the last budget. And some were worse than others. Medicaid got probation, got geez, I probably think of half a dozen things for stuff off my head and all that stuff. So we'll see this next budget cycle, what we're looking towards. And Indiana is very good about forecasting. We are very careful to not overstate what we think we're gonna have coming in, because we don't want to make bad decisions that really hurt. So we, and I've always said, and I believe this to be true, that any organization, no matter what it is, can take a 10% reduction in revenue. It's going to hurt. I can do it in my company. I'd have to put my belt tighter and I have to figure out a way to do it. 10% can't be 20. It can be 30. So I'm hoping this next budget we can try and get that on track a little bit, but ultimately, we talk a lot about local governments returning or not capturing revenue from taxpayers. The state of Indiana is doing the same thing. We've reduced our individual income tax. We've accelerated it. We got rid of the inheritance tax. We got rid of the lowered corporate income tax. You don't get the utility service sales tax. We cut the excise tax in half. there's a lot of tax cuts that we've reduced our revenue, but we still see revenue at least flat. It'd be nice to go back up. Our economy's strong. We're just recently number one in economic velocity. Let's see. Actually, in any case, Indiana's very well positioned. Our gross domestic product is growing faster than many of our neighbors. Our pensions are funded, which is a major state problem. So back in trails, where pensions are funded, those are obligations, you have to pay them. So Illinois is that is kind of reduced from now. So we don't have that problem. We did a hard plan about funding the roads, because we have to do to take care of the comes to your so we're doing the right things. I believe in trails, it's quality place. I think that the younger generation wants to be less car driving and I think trails matter to them. Indiana, in some places, we want to stay. But I think trails have value. Now, can I answer your question about do I see money for that? Until I see the budget and see what the forecasts are, we'll be trying. Whatever the decision is, and we have an experience that's come off. And some of the Medicaid stuff that we reduced, that stuff. And a lot of that burden fell on Governor Brown. We were able to see the kind of macro level he had given.
Second part of that question, I understand it at this point. The trail funded through the task force and that first coming to a town, is going through a town which is up to the town. So are you aware of any local funding? We're getting to the point where we say this is the path we want to go through the town or whatever, that we start looking at grants.
I think there's a model for you to look at. And Auburn did it through, I think they used Jackson Street. So Jackson Street connects to their trail, which goes out by Reedy Park. And Jackson Street goes the other way south, and maybe it's the Hopper Valley. Yeah, it is out underneath 69. Someone goes over 11A now, maybe. Matching grants, certainly the strategic partnership is a place you can go. Plan together, it's something else we can talk to the coordinator, is to understand the language they speak, that strategic partnership, what they want to hear, what they want to see, what their ROI is. And find a way to match it. Because matching just cuts your costs. I mean, that's, if a project's $1 million and you get somebody to match dollar for dollar, it will cost you $500,000. So you can try to cut your costs that way.
When we did the part of the trail that we did previously, I believe we used a DNR grant, but I think it was a federally funded, it was funneled, money funneled through the state.
Yeah.
Because I had to do federal reporting, is there still opportunities out there for things like that?
I don't know, I just looked at the DNR budget today, and I didn't see that. But I was looking at their grants, and I was looking at how much they pay to do deer studies. I looked at that today. I don't ever see anything about trails. What I was looking at was the Indiana tax appropriation handbook for 2025, which shows me the 2026 and 2027 fiscal year budget. And it was on page 322, and the budget number was $281,400,000 is what they have available that they oversee. Now, I will tell you that's a pretty premature number, even though I read it on page 322, right there. I've been going back and forth with my staff for the last several hours about how much of that is general, how much of it is siloed, what are the percent of all. So I think that's an overall number. I just can't we're trying to figure out what silos are. Because anytime it gets a significant amount of federal money, but a lot of that is like 18 billion in Medicaid. We have a lot of money in roads, we have a lot of money in education. Those are going to be tops.
You mentioned budget cuts for, I think, Medicare. Is there anything that's being done at the state level to assist with healthcare expansion in rural areas that you're aware of?
Yeah, so there's some rural hospitals. Adams County has some rural hospitals. Sue Glick would be a better person to answer that, because she deals, that's kind of her space. She does some rural
Because I know there's a lot of smaller communities that have like a standard doctor's office, and that's something we don't have here. And that's one thing that I've heard a lot of people complain about is, there's, people that have transportation issues or mobility issues that, have to go to Fort Wayne to a doctor checkup versus, being in town. So I didn't know if there's anything like that that's been researched that you're aware of.
No, I mean, as far as Medicaid goes, the underlying problem, no to the question, and I'm not very, Medicaid is expanding at such a rapid rate. Trying to get it in hand, it's connected, in my mind, it's connected to the teachers pre-1996 pension fund, which was set up as a pay-as-you-go, which is terrible. And over the past 10 years, we've been committed to paying that to make it, so it's actually very balanced and full. If we can do that, right now, we're putting a couple of $1 billion a year into that, just to make sure that for that teacher's pension, when they show up, they get a check, it's there. And that's a commitment that was made long before I got there. But it's a commitment nonetheless, to make sure that money just shifts over to Medicaid. Part of the issue with Medicaid was under COVID, is what it is. Usage just it was exponential, the increase, and then trying to unwind that. Once somebody's got a benefit, trying to unwind it and go back to work, it's no longer eligible. It's tough, but that's to do that. So, as far as Medicaid dollars go for individual facilities and small communities, I'm not aware. There could be actually. I see the need.
Another question, Nick. Do you know of any resources that the state has that would show what the economic impact of the changes to the veterans property tax credits for disabled vets on top of the SB1 property tax cuts?
The benefits and the reductions that we.
Well, like what the economic impact is going to be if you now get those SB1 cuts, and then you've got these additional disabled veteran property tax cuts on top of that. What is?
Well, there's more than that. It's also the business personal property tax reduction. There is up to $300 homestead credit, no longer a deduction. There's a deductions for the 2% class.
Was there any place where the state really shows what is that overall economic impact on especially on municipalities?
Yeah, that's why we're pushing the LITs, the moving taxes, and we're trying to switch away from, in my mind, we're trying to switch away from property taxes, and just give as much as possible. Huge fees. There's a discussion about local sales tax, and I can see it and understand the revenue side of it. But if you're 1% local sales tax in Cal County, but you don't in Boone County, big ticket items become cheaper and you kind of go 8%. And you see that in Ohio. Ohio's got an 8% sales tax. I think that way that works is you pay your sales tax at the end of the so I think you do a little high in the sales tax, but it's still more expensive to go someplace where that's not, the reciprocity tax is not. So
I don't really see that in retail when I work in retail, or maybe we can do a false address to try and get the cheaper tax rate. there's always ways around it, people are gonna do it.
Yeah, but little ticket, I don't think that we have most tickets, I think you need it for, the big ticket items, cars, boats, airplanes, side by sides, things that are bigger tickets, where they're sold, is, 1% of its ticket item count. Fast. So, yeah, so the way legislation works is, once you've got a bill in, and it's finalized, and it goes to the accountants and actuaries, and then always all 100% of the time is a fiscal statement. And we're able to see, what the state expense is, what the state revenue is, what the local expenses, and what the local revenue is. And most of the time, it's really good. I've argued with the actuaries and accountants over it.
You said that we're already the actuaries. The better for creative accounting.
Yeah, but we look at that. Fiscal accounting.
I just wonder if there's some place where, regular Joe can go and actually see what the state estimates and what these impacts are.
I am at GOV General Assembly, and they walk me through, sometimes they'll walk me through how to do it. They write the bill, they write the fiscal impact statement, and they lay it all out. In the best way they have, with the information they have, and they've got to make assumptions. So sometimes when making their assumptions, that's really, these are drivers. But yeah, give you fiscal impact statement. I just want to do that. They're like, pass a law that catches you. Yeah. Catches you unprepared. What else? Answers you got more, right? Do the best answer you got.
I got one more thing. Do you have any suggestions, I can try to throw names out there, of other municipalities that are similar to us that we may be able to lean on to for some advice?
Yeah, I would, and I'm gonna tell you this organization, and I'll couch it with, I love that. They know that, we love them. We disagree a lot. Their purpose and their mission is sincerely held. It's accelerating the municipalities. Are you guys members of the game?
Yes.
I would lean on them. They are very sincere. They are singularly focused on things municipal. I disagree with them frequently. I think it's friendly about that. But I think they're very sincere about what they're doing. And I think they want to help municipalities and they will do whatever they can to that. I get no doubt about that.
They get email every day. That would be great. Yeah.
All the good stuff they say about it's true. Yeah, I would certainly, I would advise counties to interact with the Association of Indiana Counties because they have a very sincere mission that they are going to support county level government. I would participate in the mayor's and commissioner's caucus if you can, and in as much as you can, kind of like a town manager would work in some other position. They have them pretty frequently. I think the next one is in Auburn, soon in that town. They talk about, they network with one another, they talk about common problems, common solutions. Been there, done that sort of thing. If someone's struggling with something, it's a great support network. So I would recommend participating in that. I would recommend participating in the General Assembly. It's really wide open. You can watch us on camera, you can go back and look at archives, you can participate in hearings, you can contact me about bills. I have people that contact me the first couple of days after the bill goes public and we'll go through them and don't be worried about these true story 75 bills that went through somebody. And most of them don't go anywhere. I mean, so I do that a lot, help people understand where we're at the day we're there, not where we're going the constant changes. Yes, I would tell you the General Assembly is a roller coaster of emotion, where some days you win, and some days you lose, and some days you lose, and then you just so it's interesting, but I would encourage you to participate. And in AIM, we'll have local call outs, we'll have days where they'll come down and you can review with your state reps, you can tell them, say it's generally for our district. Come down and talk about issues that are pressing, issues that are currently being considered. You guys are probably the most interested in the local government committee, chaired by Doug Miller. Doug Miller's from Ocean, our area. Is it May now? I think it's May, it's from Southern Indiana. But in any case, that probably Ways and Means is very interesting. It's called the money moves. $50,000, any bill, $50,000. Any bill can be recommitted to Ways and Means. There's even a CF that it could cost the city. They'll send the Ways and Means for us to pick it apart. I want to connect. We'll pick it apart and try to figure out if it cost us, could it cost us, like this happens. But yeah, your original question, mayor's and commissioner's office, we second. I just call the mayor of the town outside of the district to talk about it.
And that leads me to literally, I'm gonna stop talking after this question. If you were to walk into the office of the economic development position or the town manager, walk away, you were hired for that role tomorrow, what would be your first goal, your first action item, just from being someone that's lived in this community and worked with this town forever, and you're just like, oh my God, this has been in front of you this entire time and you haven't done it. What is that item?
Well, one point to happen first.
Well, that's in the door to the left.
So I'm not trained. And I think my advice to you is somebody who knows what to do on the first day, and when you interview them, that should be part of the interview. Tell me about what your plan is right now. Just general. What do you do? I've hired a lot of people that have been company for 35 years now. I've done everything there from select work to a whole long slew of time on portable toilets. And my dad's been in charge of portable toilets. I mean, if you had made something in the portable toilet company, I'd tell you exactly what you gotta do today. I spent 10 years on toilets. But you really need to find somebody that you're paying. But if you've got a good person, if you can get a return on your investment, they know what they're doing, and they show up when they want to, they've got energy. They've got contacts. I'd ask them who you know, where you work. If you hear something like, yeah, I've got great contacts in Iowa, I would show them. You want somebody who's got great contacts in Indiana, Northwest Ohio, Southern Michigan. I think the bigger player, maybe somebody regionally, at a multi-state area, try and bring somebody in. Probably want somebody with some real estate acumen, so they know how to do a contract purchase and be smart about it. How to cold call somebody, how to sell. That's what we're doing. Your sales. I would waste my time with anybody teaching anybody anything.
So what you're saying is I resign. That's literally every single box. Right.
Yeah, and I wouldn't encourage this effect, but this is very slight. I wouldn't encourage this. Anybody who's like 52, I'd find somebody who's doing this somewhere. Yes. Yeah, so I would do this. I need somebody who's somebody's already.
Happens a lot with town managers. Other towns, maybe other towns.
And I would say that we probably have to be fiscally ready to push somebody.
And you think if they're working for government, work for government somewhere. Make sure you don't waste.
Absolutely.
And who knows, maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised. Just gotta figure out what that number is, be true to it. Be true to it. Because you want somebody who knows what to do. Absolutely. And it has goals, and it has a benchmark, and it has a return on investment, and what should be done for us. I would set all that on the grass, I would set all that right on the front end. So we're gonna have evaluations pretty regularly, you want to happening. And you also have to be pretty comfortable with the fact that sometimes they're not. There's some, you don't want to lose a deal because someone can come back. You just have to be comfortable that there's going to be something you can't do.
I feel like there'd be a lot of benefits of finding somebody who's active in the community as well, based off coaching somebody. But partly, they are kind of this, they're detached from the regular life here. They see it as a business and not as a home. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think there's benefit to that.
And then fresh.
Yeah.
It's very refreshing. Yeah, I think that's really good. That's amazing. Somebody's working somewhere today that is looking for something new.
Yeah. Challenge.
Yeah. Love Scott. I was late, so you guys get me as long as you want. Every question's exhausted. I would stay as long as you want.
I would first say thank you. It has been, this has been an eye opener of some other ways that we could travel in this. I'm not concerned that you were late. I'm more proud that we have a representative that's willing to come out here and meet with us. So, thank you, appreciate it.
Anytime, anything you need, I do it literally all the time.
Yeah.
I get constituent Facebooks at 3 in the morning. Like,
Not gonna happen for me.
just depends on what you need, what you need there. If I can help you, if I can't, I'll find somebody. And if I absolutely can't help you, I can't do something. But I'm normally trying to find a pathway to some sort of solution. Because it's truly, absolutely the honor of my life. No kidding, not to be, not to be too high on all, but being state representative of the community I grew up in is pretty much the kind of, it's been good.
I've got one here, I understand you two play golf together.
No, they played golf. I thought I was gonna hit with them, and then I watched the first couple holes. Man, I gotta go do something. I go hard. And he left.
Did he really shoot a 59?
We shot lower than that.
Did you?
All right, so they did. And so I put together a rare team because we got, it's a funny story. Maybe 10 years ago, we had a team, we won, and I had scorecard. And I got, like I do, I started talking to people, and I forgot to turn this over. And I thought, dear Lord, help us if we won. And we did. And my buddies, and the person that won was 1 stroke more than us. And my buddy came over to me and he's like, "Where's the score?" I've been able to keep score since, but we put together a great team. You guys are so good. And I had somebody say, that's a pretty low score. And I said, they could take that score from the church. I watched it. And other people were watching you guys too. And it was.
We were 6 strokes below the closest team. Wow. And it was legit.
That's a fun course.
It is.
It's great to have top. It was a great day.
Well, our head guy, he was the #1 golfer at Butler back in his day. So it kind of helped having him be able to clean up things when he needed to.
I did a couple, and I just, felt so proud. They thought I could do this. He's like, hey, you just need to put this ball a little bit to the right of that tree. It's normal. I can't do that. So yeah, it was a fun day.
I put it by that tree up there to the right, 3 fairways over.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was really good. But anytime obviously, if Taylor around, I work there, you can reach me there, get me on social media, hit me through my office. I'm easy to, I go through Waterloo 4 or 5 times a week. So I'm happy to help.
Cool.
Do you still do porta potties?
I do.
He does. That's all. Right into with your show.
I was actually running, I was pumping them then. Yeah, I was still working with the trucks. I just did a fresh water tank swap for one of the guys. And If it breaks, I'm in there so long, I'm going to fix it. So I do a lot. I wear a lot of rubber gloves in my day to day. But yeah, I still do that. I mean, there's days where I'm doing this, and then I'll change into. You would have normally gotten me if I wasn't in such a hurry because I had a wardrobe change at work. Where I switch into my state rep stuff, and then I'll switch out of my state rep stuff and my table health stuff, and switch up, change clothes back and forth.
I genuinely appreciate how you're dressed right now, because like that's literally the community that you gave this to. It's awesome. I was just telling Smee, I'm like, it's awesome to see someone that doesn't like sugarcoat, and when you don't know the answer or anything like that, you don't try and fluff it up like you
do. But all right, so again, thanks very much for having me. Thank you for stepping up, saying grace, and really appreciate all the questions. And any follow-ups, you've got my number or share it. We're really just we're taking cocktail a little. No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.